Each mic check 1 2, what it do? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Thanks for tapping in. Today we're talking about Terence Crawford and the star treatment he's receiving since his resounding victory over Errol Spence Jr. But before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate that feedback. All right, y'all. So let's go and tap into it. So Terence Crawford, July 29th, became two-time undisputed champion, snatching away the 3 welterweight belts to complete the set of 4. And now he's the first two-time undisputed champion on the men's side in the 4-belt era. And since the fight, his visibility has really elevated. Prior to, I'd say, the last year, really, you didn't see a whole lot of Terence Crawford except very specific to when he had a fight. You would see a little bit of promotion, but for the most part, he wasn't a guy who talked to the media much. He just wasn't somebody that you saw that often. But leading up to, well, once the negotiation started with Errol Spence, you started to see him a little bit more. But even when he had a fight at the end of 2022 with David Avanesian, you didn't really see Terence Crawford that much. He did a couple of like low-grade promos for the BLK Prime platform, but that was about it. He did maybe 1 or 2 interviews leading up, maybe 3 notable interviews with like the major outlets, but that was it. But then they circled back to the negotiations earlier in 2023, and you started to see Bud Crawford more. And then immediately after you saw him pop out, you get that fight announcement, and then you see he and Errol Spence start the media run. Now, something I made a video about like right after the fight announcement, I said Bud was on the road already promoting the fight, and you didn't see much from Errol. And I made note of that because I said, I think that this looks like he's running the PBC playbook, the Showtime playbook, to get you out in front of media outlets and make sure that people know who you are, because we want a group of people who may not be buying the fight, who don't really know who you are, to figure out why they need to spend $85. And it worked like a charm. While the fight didn't have critical acclaim in terms of performance or in box office performance, coming in at around 750,000 pay-per-view buys, I do believe that that's a significant number considering Terence and Errol split a fan base. So keep in mind, their number one supporters typically are going to be Black Americans. If you've been anywhere near boxing Twitter or YTBC, the YouTube boxing community, you'll know that everything has been split between the two gentlemen. So going forward, when you think about now, Terence Crawford has stepped into a realm of, you could probably call it superstardom, because he's been on all these different platforms since the fight. He's been on actual, regular network TV. He's made all the podcast circuits. You can see on the screenshot here. He went back to the Breakfast Club to rub it in Charlemagne the God's face. He even took his chair because he's a champ. I thought that was pretty funny. But something I want to talk about here specifically is Terence Crawford is showing a version of himself that nobody had seen before. So to me, this is important for the rest of his career. He says he wants big money fights, and I think that he's understanding now that you have to be visible in order to get the big money fights. Even Tank, as quiet and as sometimes he doesn't speak the best all the time in public or whatever the case may be, he still gets out there and he's visible. He'll go do the interviews with the outlets that may or may not have said great things about him, and he'll go out there and talk to them anyway, because he knows that, pretty much like Mayweather, his predecessor, all press is good press when you think about it, because at the end of the day, you still got to go in the ring and perform, and you're undefeated right now. You're undisputed right now. Ride that train. Now you've got other opportunities. People talking about you fighting the 2 biggest cash cows in boxing on U.S. soil, Canelo Alvarez and Gervonta Davis. You're in conversations about both. So that tells you that people are seeing you in a light that they didn't see before. Nobody was talking about this stuff before, but now suddenly these are realistic conversations of things that can happen. So he's starting to get that star treatment that a guy with 10 consecutive or 11 consecutive knockouts should have already had. So it brings into question previous promotional ties that may not have given him the best opportunity, because I'm like, if you have ESPN, there's no way if I have a partnership with ESPN as Top Rank that I'm not going to have Terence Crawford, who's a sportsman, a true sportsman. He knows wrestling. He understands football. Like, he knows the history of Nebraska football. He has all these different elements of him that nobody got to see. But now that he's talking more, you find out this dude knows a lot of different sports. He knows who's doing what. He could tell you about baseball, fishing, wrestling, etc., I would have him on ESPN as often as possible, where when they introduce him, it's a highlight reel of him knocking suckers out. And then he talks about whatever other sport. It's going to endear him to fans. And they had the worldwide leader in sports, they say, as a springboard to make him a bigger star. Now he's over on the quote unquote other side of the street. And this dude is everywhere. Everything you turn on has got Terence Crawford on it. And he's interviewing. He's been on Earn Your Leisure. So he's even hitting like the cultural hotspots to do these different interviews. And now he gets to talk about the fact that he's been smart with his money and he's got great business ventures. And he's being seen as a true entertainer. I think that's the difference. When you go from an athlete into that entertainer realm and it doesn't take away from your craft, you're in rarefied air. When you think about somebody like Michael Jordan achieving that status, to some degree, you could say like Allen Iverson was a cultural icon. Terence Crawford can become that in the latter years of his career. He said he got a few fights left. He jokingly said he'll fight until he's 40, but we know better. Bud don't want to fight that long. He's got other fish to fry, so to speak. So I think that he's stepping into his star era properly, and I believe that some credit is owed to the company that he's probably going to fight under one more time, at least against Errol Spence in the rematch, and potentially somebody else. Like, he's going to have to work with them again to fight Jermell Charlo if that's something he really wants. So to me, I think that he's starting to do it the right way. I wish this had been 5 years earlier, because Terence Crawford would be right up there with Canelo, because he does have those amazing and exciting knockouts. And I think all he really needed to do was cross the street 5 years ago. But hey, I'm just a dude with a podcast giving his piece on it. Happy to see another brother out there shining. Happy that he's getting the credit for the things that he's done. If you're a boxing fan, how can you not be a Terence Crawford fan, even if you prefer other fighters? And hopefully that doesn't go over some of y'all heads. But hey, drop your thoughts down in the comments. This has been T for the Mic Check Podcast. Until the next time, I'm out. Peace.